Welcome back, everyone, to the No BS Real Estate Podcast, your listening how-to guide to the Australian finance and real estate market. I'm your host, Jo, and on today's show, I have a very special guest, and I'm such a close person to me, Cynthia from Metrolinks Property Advisors. Cynthia is a buyer's advocate by trade. She's been doing this for so many years now, 20 plus years, and I'll let her give more of an introduction to herself, but I just can't say enough good things about Cynthia and her services. So Cynthia, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Jo. It's great to be here.
I'm so excited to unpack because I know I've had so many conversations with you one-on-one, of course, since I've met you, and I've always found all your tales and how you do things so different, and your approach is awesome. So I'm really excited to unpack. And like I said to you earlier, the way I like to run these sessions is for the listeners. So they want us to get started quickly to unpack the first question and get into the interview. I'll get started. My first question to you is, how did you get into buyer's advocacy, and what drives your passion for helping people find their right homes or investment properties?
Honestly, it's been quite a journey. I got into buyer's advocacy because, firstly, I've always had a passion for real estate, and not just the transactions, but the transformation that happens when people find the right property. Early in my career, I experienced this firsthand of how overwhelming and confusing the process could be for buyers, especially new to the market. It's just navigating these. It's a life-changing decision that we make, and it just hits home. When we first came to Australia and we bought a house, the seller didn't tell us we needed to have the contract read, we needed to have a building inspection done, we needed to pay 10%. So,
Wow.
we only bought half a lemon, and that's when I realized that people just need guidance. They need someone on their side to help them cut through the noise, if you want to say, and just make informed choices. Because honestly, the real estate agent is there for the seller, and that's correct. That's their job. And they're there to get the property sold, but that then doesn't help the buyer understand what they are in for.
It's so true.
So for me, it's a real personal connection and the impact that I have. And also from a client side, every client has a unique story, and that I found out over the years. And whether they're buying their first home, investing for the future, maybe they're buying investments that they want to give to the kids one day. It's a really hard market. We all know that. We had these discussions over and over again. Or just looking for a place to raise their family, being part of that journey, helping them secure not just a property, but a vision for their future. That's what gets me excited about the whole journey. I just love seeing the relief and the joy on my clients' faces when we find that right property. Whether it's the home, I say to my clients, dream it, believe it, and I will help you achieve it. And that's honestly what I feel to my heart.
I love that. And one of my favorite things when I'm on social media, because obviously I follow you, and when I see you put up the photos of, your clients at the end of a transaction where you're standing there with the board, I think it's really heartwarming, because you can see how happy they are. It's an exciting moment. And then you've been part of that journey to help them secure that property, and they're never going to forget that because it's such a big investment. So I really love that you do that, and it always has a good feeling to it.
Definitely. And I think that this is where, and most people would have heard this, like, it's not just inspecting properties. Buyers advocates, and we'll get through that in the podcast, bring a lot more to the table.
100%. No, there's so much value, and that's exactly what we're going to unpack very shortly, because my next question is on the back of these personal experiences. The connections you build with people are so important. Do you have a memorable, and you probably do have many, but do you have one memorable experience with a client where you went above and beyond to help them find their right home, and maybe it was a negotiation, or it could have been anything?
Well, yeah, there have been many, but one experience really sticks with me. I was working with a young couple who had been searching for their home for months. They had a clear vision of what they wanted, but the market was just tough.
Mm.
And yeah, they were just losing hope. And every
Right.
place that we looked at either didn't meet their needs or got snatched up before we could even make an offer. And it started to be a frustrating journey for them. And
Mm.
I could see how disheartening they were getting. And
Mm.
buying a property is meant to be a joyous occasion. And I knew then that I had to think outside the box. And that's where my expertise came in, starting digging deeper into off-market properties, making
Mm.
calls to the agents, reaching out to my network. And I found a home that wasn't even listed yet. It checked off every box on their wish list. Um, the catch was, and this comes again with experience, is the seller wasn't sure if they were ready to put it on the market. So I had to
Right.
work really closely with both sides, negotiating and reassuring them, because you also want to respect the seller as much
Mm.
as you do your buyer. Yeah, so working closely with them, and it took us about 2 weeks of backwards and forth, but we were able to secure that property for my clients before anyone else even knew about it,
That's
which also
awesome.
took away a lot of the stress. And you know what? As you said before, looking at my clients' photos, they were over the moon. I'll never
Yeah.
forget the moment when we walked through the house for the final inspection and they just looked around with tears in their eyes. It wasn't just about finding the house. It was about finding a home that
Mm.
they could start their future. And those are the moments that remind me why I do what I do.
I really that was a beautiful answer and a great story because it is, like you said, it is disheartening at points for a lot of home buyers. And for those listening, they might be going through this right now and thinking, what are my options and what do I do? I've been on market for, 4 or 6 months in some cases, and the worst ones I've heard are 12 months, where they're capital ready, but they just can't find an opportunity or they're missing out on deals because of competition. And this is leading so nicely into, the, I guess, question of the hour is service, right?
Yep.
Advocacy brings so much value, and knowing, my background as an advocate as well, so I'm a bit biased, but I try not to be. But I have to say, making a difference is a huge thing, like you said. And with the service that comes with it, explain from your perspective, I guess, your services specifically, what sets you apart from other buyers agents in market? And can you describe your unique approach to buyers advocacy and what the process involves?
Okay, so I'd say one of the key things that sets us apart is my focus on strategic decision making. I believe in empowering my clients to make a smarter, faster decision, and that starts with truly understanding their goals.
Mhm.
So setting the strategy from the beginning and getting a good blueprint of what their goals are. And that doesn't matter whether they're buying a family home or an investment property.
Mm.
I don't just look at the property itself. I dive deep into the market trends, future growth potentials, and how specific purchase fits into their broader financial and lifestyle objectives. You want
Mm.
people to be able to buy their homes and live comfortably,
Of
not
course.
to be, feel like they're being strangled to every payment every month. So it's not just about finding a home, it's about that strategy. As I said, I approach every client situation with a tailored strategy. Some people are focused on finding their forever home. Others might be an investment for later on because they want that rental return. I customize each approach for every client. Our biggest difference is we only work with one client at a time.
Right.
And this way we are focused on them 24/7, which does make the process go faster because it's all about them.
Yeah, of course. That makes sense.
Again, we are with our clients every step of the way, from initial consultation to post-purchase support. I make sure that they're confident,
Mm.
comfortable, and informed as we go along with each step. To answer that, how would I navigate faster moving. As I said, we only deal one on
Yeah.
one, and also the real estate market moves really quickly. Like, we can move week by week.
It's true.
So I would say it's all about being proactive, and that's where that one-on-one comes in. I do definitely leverage my network to find off-market opportunities and keep my clients ahead of the competition. That's the aim. Whether it's quiet listing or soon to be released listing, I make sure that they have access to opportunities others might not have. That's a big advantage. Of buyers advocates in general, but also from Metrolinks point, I educate my clients throughout the process so they can make the decisions and they feel comfortable and they feel that it's right when the opportunity comes along.
That's so important too.
Can I say it's about being agile without feeling rushed, moving quickly, but making smart, informed decisions on both sides. So definitely empowering them that the decision is made by them, even though I'm guiding them.
Yeah, of course, it makes complete sense.
I know that they're paying for a service, but at the end of the day, if this is their family home, they need to feel comfortable and not spoken into something. It's not a false transaction.
Yeah, correct.
It's a transaction that needs to take as long as it takes for the client to be comfortable.
Correct, because all your role is to set out the milestones, give them enough information to make an informed decision. But because you're giving them that education and that information up front, it's easier for them to actually make those calls. Because often what happens is when you're doing it yourself, as a lot of home buyers do, right, without support, there's a lot of decisions you have to make, and sometimes you don't know how to make them because you don't have the right information in front of you. So this is what draws out the purchase process, because you can't decide on, well, is this a good investment? I actually don't know. The look and feels great. I think it's a nice neighborhood. I don't know enough about it, but based on pictures and the price, it fits my budget. Whereas an advocate's perspective, what you're describing is giving all of that context to the things that they may not know. So it's your decision completely changes, your way of thinking and the strategy that you use changes that for a customer. And that's not necessarily talking them into a sale. That's not what it is. It's talking to them about their options and giving them enough data to make that choice.
Well, yeah, it's not about what they have to do and what it's about recommending. And
Correct.
I think it just comes with experience on honestly telling them the good, the bad, and the ugly about a property. They still at the end of the day feel that it's right for them. That's okay. But they need to know, because I've seen so many homes, that I feel that it's my duty to point things out.
Of course.
And then this way they know that they have checked everything out.
Exactly.
And they haven't just settled. Settling is not the answer. You don't just settle.
No, and I think what you said right there is so spot on with regards to actually telling them the good, the bad, and the ugly. A lot of the time, it can be hard to give tough feedback, but in this, like as an advocate yourself, you have to give that good, bad, and ugly feedback on everything, because then you're not doing it, justice for that property or for that client. And they're more grateful in the end. It's like you might not want to hear some of the ugly information, but it's there. It exists. And no, it's excellent. I really like that. And it sounds like, in terms of your expertise, you've been doing this for such a long time, and you would have seen a lot of changes, I imagine, in the market since you started, 20 odd years ago to now. Has much changed, in your opinion, in terms of buying behavior or even market trends?
Definitely. And I think it's also a lot of the changes have come with the generational change as well. People are looking for different things.
Yeah, that's true.
And then that also changes the market, because you've got old builds, new builds, but you've got all the different generations and everybody's coming with a different wish list. Some have been brought up in a home and they want the identical thing and you can't always get it. And, others want to suddenly move areas. And so I have found a big change in the way people are buying. I think nowadays people are more conscious about their finances.
Mhm.
Like and in the older days, it would be, where is my money best spent?
Yes. Yeah.
And as for the market, the market keeps changing, as we know, prices go up, prices go down. But I still say that I'd rather pay my own mortgage than somebody else's mortgage.
Yeah.
And it's really, I'm a very big believer in, you might want a specific area. And I like to show people what their money gives them in the surrounding suburbs.
Yes.
So again, then they can also decide, okay, no, I prefer to get a smaller house for my budget because I want to live here against a bigger house for my budget because I want to live there.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And because I've got the hours and this is what I do for them, 5 days a week or 7 days a week, I've got time to show them those options.
And I think that's important. Like you said, it's the surround. Often, you don't know what's around. Like you get set on a suburb, right? Because that's what you've, decided on. But it's until someone like yourself, like an advocate, points out, have you considered just 10 minutes down the road, 10 minutes further, could actually get you something completely different for your budget, and it better suits your needs. And you're only 10 minutes away from where you originally wanted to be. And oftentimes, like, this is so important from an advocate's position to present that information. It just opens up a whole different conversation.
And I think also by deep diving into the goals is, if they're younger, you tend on having a family, would you then not want to move their house and be near a school? Is their family considered? There's so many questions that have to be asked that people take for granted that we don't.
Yeah,
Because that
it's
makes
true.
a strategy of where we're buying, why we're buying, and what we're buying.
No, I really, yeah, that's so true. I really like that answer, because it's a life decision. It's not just a house, it's a home. It's the place where we're going to raise families, or maybe it's retirement, or maybe it's for our parents. There's so many things, and you can't think
Everybody's
of
home is
everything.
their castle, just different
Correct.
reasons.
Correct. And I wanted to ask, in terms of, this is where I have a lot of questions around this from customers normally, and people I talk to in general about negotiation, right? So it's saying, buyers advocates can save you money with negotiation. That's always one of the phrases we hear. And I'm like, okay, I've asked every advocate this same question, and it is, do you have a successful negotiation story or auction story, where you have gone through this journey with a customer and you've had to really advocate hard to try and win them a property over someone else?
Oh, yes, we do a lot of negotiation. I suppose that's probably one of the strongest skills that I have. Okay, let's see what stands out the most recently. I did have a client that I was working with that had their heart, like most people would say, set on a beautiful home in a highly competitive area. The market has been hot from a point of that stock levels have been low. So, there's more buyers for that particular property. Properties are on a campaign for only 4 weeks, so they go generally pretty quickly if it's in a demand in an area that's that has a high demand, and that also then follows with the asking price. And a lot of people will say, well, is what's advertised the actual price, because they always see or hear of properties going for so much more. So this particular client that I'm thinking about had a specific budget, and I knew that we had to be strategic if we wanted to secure a home without stretching beyond what made them comfortable. And I'm very much am a strong believer in sticking to my clients' budgets. I don't go over budget at all, ever.
Nice.
And this person that I'm thinking was really difficult, definitely challenging, but just being prepared and knowing how to read the situation really helps. The property had already attracted a lot of attention, and there were multiple offers on the table, so I was told by the agent. And instead of going into a bidding war and risking an inflated price, I did my research on the seller's situation, and this again comes with the relationships that we build with the real estate agents. Excuse me. And I found that they were more interested in a quick sale for personal reasons. And
Right.
this way, and they just needed, they weren't going to hold out for the highest bidder. They really needed it to move quickly.
Right.
And by me then offering them the terms that they needed is what got me over the line.
That's such.
So knowing the seller's motivation allowed me to craft, or should I say, tailor the offer that appealed
Most.
to them beyond just the price.
And
So I negotiated favorable terms,
yeah,
and a short settlement period, flexibility on a few conditions that made the process easier for the seller. Of course, I was also, my priority was my buyer.
of course.
And we came in just under our competitors' offers, because it was just based on the terms. So I think the negotiation is understanding the market, reading the crowd, especially at auction. Yeah, and just knowing your prices, and as I said, looking into the terms, because everybody's got a soft spot or that sweet spot, and it's just experience of just finding it.
It's so true. Like you said, often I think a lot of the misconception in market is, oh, you have to have the highest price and you win. Well, like in this example, I think this was a really great one to use on your part. It was the terms. It was not necessarily the best price won. It was terms that won this, at the end of the day, and getting to know that motivation from the seller, the relationships that advocates have with, like you said, your networks or the agents themselves. They treat you very different. Agents have a different tone and a different way of managing, I guess, a sale when they're negotiating or they're discussing it with a buyer's advocate, because they know they're discussing it with the expert. So they're often more open, I find, when they're telling you information about a property. They're still, working for their seller, but the negotiation can sometimes be easier because they're telling you exactly what the seller wants. It's like the seller wants a 20-day settlement. Like that's what's going to do it.
So it's also respecting both sides.
Correct.
And that's very important. It's not just about what's right for my buyer. It's also doing what's right by the seller. It's just having that work ethic as well that just makes the negotiation just a smoother transition, because everybody's respected in the transaction.
That's right. And it's one of those things, it's a fine line. It's the art of negotiation, right? You're not going in there hot-headed and saying, sign here, this is what we're doing. No, I'm not going to negotiate. It's not about being tough. It's about balance. Everyone wins.
And I mean, that's exactly what it's the same as going to an auction. It's a negotiation, just in a different way.
And with auction, there's a lot of things happening at an auction, and often they get snapped up so quickly. So I find that approach, there's a lot of, with your services, I wanted to ask, when you go into an auction situation, do you do, what's your process behind it with a client who is trying to purchase at auction, typically?
Oh, well, I always need to know what their budget is, where they're at. I'll always do research on the area beforehand, so I really know whether we overspending, or I mean, nobody ever wants to overspend, but when it is your own occupier home, it's a different emotional buy. But I just find that a lot of people would use somebody else to bid at auction because we're not emotionally buying it. So we'll think with our heads, we won't go that extra $1,000, because if you don't have it in your budget, don't spend it. It's not there. And people do get carried away because it's just how the auctions run. And when people are going backwards and forwards, you also want to be part of it. When they talk about FOMO, the fear of missing out, that applies in an auction, because you could get caught up in that. It's like a banter. 1,000 here, 1,000 here, 1,000 here, 1,000. Do you know what I mean? And you also want to be having part of that game.
It's
So
true.
it's really, really, really easy to get carried away.
And you do see that a lot of the time at auction where it does go up. And I've seen when I've attended auctions, like just passively, just to see how they're operating. There's a couple of times where I see buyers at the end who don't, they're happy for the moment they won, but then you see that there's a little bit of concern. And you can tell it's because they've gone over budget and they're probably a little bit panicked. And I think that's the last thing you want to feel is any hint of regret after you've won an auction. And this is why it's so important to, like you said, have your budget, have a limit, set. That limit shouldn't go beyond, because the minute you get caught up, it can be very ego driven that someone's coming in as a hot shot saying, oh, I'll give 5 grand more. And all of a sudden you've been out competed in the auction in the first 10 seconds of the auction starting.
Yeah.
And it's very hard not to want to compete after that. It takes a lot of mental strength to say, I'm not competing, I've hit my budget. It's not worth it.
Correct. And that's exactly what it's all about, because you get caught up in the race.
That's right. Oh, Cynthia, this has been so enlightening. We're coming up to the last question. I really like this last question because it's you've got so much advice to share. You've given so many great tips here in this conversation already. But what would be your advice if there's a home buyer listening right now? Maybe they've been on the market a while, or maybe they're, going to open for inspection this weekend or today. Is there any advice or tip that you can share with them about their journey and what they can do in market when they're about to buy?
Okay, so I'd say my biggest piece of advice for homeowners is to be prepared. Make your wish list, stick to it, have it written, have it on a piece of paper. Try stay in your lane on that wish list. There can be a little bit of flexibility, but you really need to have everything written down, not in your head. Because you walk into properties and it is very overwhelming, because people do buy with their eyes and their hearts and not with their heads. The real estate market can be unpredictable, and it's easy to get attached to a specific home. That's why having this piece of paper to keep pulling you back to this is what I want is important. So I always tell my clients to have a clear plan, but remain open to adjustments along the way. The market can shift quickly, so opportunities can pop up. So really, if you're ready to buy, be prepared to follow the process, So if you want to start buying, have your finances done. Don't start looking and then maybe if.
Yeah.
So be ready. Stick to your budgets is a really, really big one. And I'm always going to say I recommend working with an experienced professional who can guide you through the process. And I think this is a big one, and I have to say it. We, including you, Joe, do this every day. We don't buy one house in a lifetime, or they generally say that people might buy a maximum of 3 in their lifetime. I can buy one every 2 weeks. So this is what I do, this is what I know, and there is a very big difference using an experienced professional to guide you. We are here for a reason, and it's not about the money. It's about the advice and the experience that we bring with all the different clients that we worked with, all the different homes that we bought. And that does guide you, because that comes with experience. And that goes back to the original when we spoke about telling clients about the good, the bad, and the ugly, because we've experienced it. We're not just talking because rule of thumb, or we've listened to the internet, we've, listened to podcasts, listened to YouTube. You know what I mean? This is real time. If you want to look at somebody's Google reviews or ask them for a testimonial of an actual person that they have helped you buy, because that is the truth, and that's what helps. There's a reason why we're here, and also, as I said at the beginning, we didn't know, and we spent a lot of money on something that could have been a disaster.
No,
and I never want that to anybody ever.
I really love that.
Having someone in your corner makes a world of difference, and I've always said, and it's on my website, a buyer's advocate is a buyer's secret weapon.
It's so true. And Cynthia, thank you so much for sharing that. I think there's so much good advice in such a short episode. We could talk for hours, I'm sure of that. And I always think, oh my gosh, I'm so not good with timekeeping. And this has been so engaging and so great to talk to you. I think what you've shared today, thank you for being open and sharing so much with our listeners. I think this is so valuable. You know, it is a secret weapon to have a buyer's advocate. It does have a bit of a different tone when they attend inspections or even they attend auctions with you. It's very different. But thank you so much for your time, Cynthia. So nice to chat to you.
Thanks, Jo. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
Of course. And thank you everyone for tuning in. If you're listening, this is the No BS Real Estate Podcast. You can follow us on Spotify or socials or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're listening in the Abodey app, good luck on your home buying journey. Reach out to Cynthia if you've got all her details there in the professionals area. And please reach out if you have any questions. We look forward to talking to you next time. Thanks so much.